The information age was an era nearly everybody embraced. But today's surveillance age, experts say, is a reality almost no one can escape.
We are 5 years away in New York from zero privacy, from every New Yorker being tracked and cataloged and watched, and that information being saved for pretty much an indeterminate period of time.
Private investigator Steve Rombaum believes America is being landscaped into an eyes-wide-open society through the advancing market of biometrics, technology that uses physiological and behavioral recognition to identify people. A system touted as a national security necessity is being used to build a database where the biometric identity of millions of Americans will be gathered and stored.
1984 is ancient history compared to this. There is another sci-fi book called My Name is Legion. In the book, all of the people were categorized by the government. We are getting closer to that future. If not in this generation, then in the next one, babies' DNA could be taken upon birth.
Now, the fingerprints and eye scans of every person in India are being gathered in the biggest biometric database in the world. More than 1.2 billion people's data will be on the system, which will give access to the welfare state. But opponents argue the scheme could be exploited by the Indian government. Alex Rossi reports from Delhi.
This is an enormous task. The fingerprints and eye scans of every Indian in the country are being taken and collated into an online database. When complete, everyone will have a unique 12-digit identity number. It'll enable them to access India's vast and unwieldy welfare state.
To think something so small can connect you to everything that matters.
When your life and all you love
are on the line.
HealthLink is always with you when every second counts in the emergency room, providing immediate access to your medical records.
Because Bob has trouble remembering all his medications.
Because I'm in love with my kids' kids.
Because my car lost control while driving.
Because now I'm looking out for both of us.
Because I have diabetes, but it doesn't have me.
Because I spend my life in the ER trying to save yours.
People who work here can be chipped to gain entry to the building and various services. I've just been chipped myself. It's not a painless process, but it doesn't last too long, not too difficult. Minor surgical procedure, which basically involves a little chip the size of, I suppose, of a grain of rice being inserted under your skin, and you can then go off and have it programmed and then do various things inside the building. Let's go and have a look. And here's Hannah Schobler, who is in charge of this whole chipping operation in this building. Now, you've been chipped yourself. Where's your chip?
Yeah, I have a chip right here, which I use to access the entire office.
So let's see if we can get into this particular
This is how I do it.
Okay.
No need for passcodes.
And we're in. So, what else can you use this for? Is it just for gaining entry to doors? Because that would seem a fairly simple thing.
Absolutely not. I mean, with this technology, I interact with all kinds of devices all around us. It can be normally my smartphone. I unlock my smartphone, my computer, I unlock my bike. All kinds of things that are now part of the greater connected Internet of Things.
But inside this building, you'll be able to do what else? What other thing will you be able to do?
Oh, I open the front door, I open various office rooms, I open the copy machine so that I can log into it.
So you can print just by putting your hand against the printer?
Exactly. So it's instead of having some clumsy device in my pocket, I just put my hand on the reader. If we help show people that this is really not that complicated, it's making our lives easier, I think people will actually welcome this tool to make their lives easier.
And is there a sort of wider philosophy behind it?
We are early adopters of this technology. We experiment with it, we learn it, how it works, because I think that there might be a day when the tax man or the big corporates will come to us and say, hey, try this chip, try this implant. And then we, the biohackers who understand this technology, we will be able to question their proposals.
More than 1 million children in the UK have had their fingerprints taken by their schools as a form of identity, according to a new report by Big Brother Watch. And it's thought the parents of almost a third weren't even asked for their consent. RT's Laura Smith looks at what critics say is a worrying attack on child privacy.
Gone are the days when the only time you'd be asked for your fingerprints is if you were suspected of a crime. Nowadays, they're starting them young, at school to be precise. Research shows more than 1 million school children have been fingerprinted and their biometric data used to identify them for things like cash-free lunches, checking attendance and what library books they're borrowing.
Forget about cash or numbers or student ID cards. 3 New Mexico schools were about to start using something in their cafeterias that you would associate more with the Department of Homeland Security: palm scanners. The idea, to keep the lines moving and to keep kids from using other kids' lunch money. But some parents don't like the idea. Here's News 13's Lizzie Mitri.
It's not something we're used to seeing in school cafeterias. Students paying for their school lunches with a wave of a hand. It's already used in some schools across the country, but 3 schools in the Los Lunas School District would have been the first in New Mexico to try it out this week. That is, until concerned parents spoke up.
I just don't see the point. I don't think it's a good idea.
It's a violation of our rights.
I thought it was a little bit extreme.
Parents of students at Los Lunas Elementary, Middle, and High School got phone calls announcing the system would be tested there before expanding district-wide. No one from the district would speak on camera, but Superintendent Bernard Sy says the palm scanners would keep lunch lines moving faster and prevent students from using other kids' ID cards or numbers to pay for their meals. He says only food services and technology administrators would have access to the palm scanner data, about 4 people, and that it would be kept private just like students' academic records.
Fingerprint, please. Students at Ulaga-Talala Public Schools are moving through the lunch line a little bit faster these days.
A lot of students here are actually able to eat lunch now because sometimes the lines are so long that and the keyboard takes a little while. So, you know, it's just one little press and then off to their table.
By touching this device with their index finger, the computer system identifies a student by their fingerprint and charges their lunch account. The high-tech payment method is a first for the state.
It makes me feel kind of like I'm on CSI because it's a lot faster and you're taking your fingerprint like, you know, like they do. It's fun.
It's pretty cool.
Most of the students here feel the same. Out of the nearly 500 middle school students, only 3 objected to having their fingerprint in a database.
Not a large amount, but we've had some who said that they didn't feel comfortable with their child being fingerprinted. And we respected their wishes on that.
School Superintendent Rick Thomas says those few kids use the old payment method of punching in their ID number on a keypad. They piloted this fingerprinting program with the elementary kids last year and had success, so they added it for the middle school and high school this year.
Universal Studios Japan, located in Osaka, is one of the most popular theme parks in Japan. To enjoy its high-tech attractions and family-friendly events featuring major movies, more than 8 million visitors come here a year. To satisfy visitors with a first-rate service, Universal Studios Japan is introducing cutting-edge systems with advanced technologies. With the annual Studio Pass, visitors can enjoy this park anytime repeatedly within a year. As many as 500,000 passes are issued annually.
We used a manual process to take our guest photos and to print them a card so that they could come into the park. This was very laborious for us and very time-consuming for our guests. Sometimes they would have to wait 1, 2, or even 3 hours to be processed because the process took so long.
To realize more efficient ticketing and smoother entry, Universal Studios Japan had been considering a system applying biometrics. After a thorough study, they chose the access control system utilizing user-friendly face recognition technology. Essential in the construction was NEC's facial recognition technology. Fast, precise and reliable. Firstly, at the ticket booth, guests receive annual studio passes imprinted with a 2-dimensional code. Then they register their facial photographs at the recognition monitor and enter. From their next visit, they can enter the park just by touching the reader with their annual passes and turning their faces towards the recognition monitor. It takes approximately 1 second to check a face. In other words, the park virtually recognizes visitors every time they visit.
New York police have got a new addition to their arsenal in trying to defeat gun crime these days. It allows them to pinpoint where the shots were fired. But liberty activists suspect that's not the whole story, as Amelia Portnoy has been discovering.
This week, America's largest police department began using ShotSpotter, a high-tech system that uses sensors, which work as sensitive microphones, to detect the sound of gunfire. After pinpointing the exact address of the shooting, the sensors activate nearby cameras and immediately alert the authorities.
Charlie 77, show me responding.
Officials say that roughly 75% of shots heard by the public are never reported to law enforcement.
It increases the chances of catching the shooter. It increases the chances of recovering the weapon, increases our chances of stopping further crime thereafter.
However, the $1.5 million pilot program is raising privacy concerns about how the data recorded by ShotSpotter microphones is collected and used.
If conversations are capable of being intercepted, then that's a bigger problem. That's like Big Brother, and that's not about one's safety. That's just now meddling into the everyday conversations of people. And the question is then, what are the police going to do with those conversations?
Back in 2012, a ShotSpotter system in Massachusetts recorded a loud street argument following a fatal shooting. The warrantless secret recording was used by investigators to arrest 2 suspects. Attorney Frank Camera defended one of the men.
With the sounds of the gunfire came the conversations as clear as you and I talking. And clearly that's concerning. I mean, because it does open up a whole host of issues regarding one's privacy.
The NYPD says 300 ShotSpotter sensors have been placed throughout New York City where a high amount of shootings have occurred. But it's not clear where exactly the microphones are located, meaning citizens who are concerned about having their public conversations recorded can't know which streets are wired with electronic ears.
Soon you could be watched everywhere you go in the UK, even where the cameras can't see you. All your emails, texts and phone calls will be monitored under a new anti-terror spy plan. The government will know which websites you visit. It'll even snoop on your private Facebook messages. No matter who you are, all your personal data will be stored for a year in a massive surveillance operation privacy campaigners condemn.
This is the first step towards the government taking control of the internet. You know, the only place in the world that's got that kind of regulation is China. And I'm sorry, but Britain is not China.
Britain's already one of the most watched societies in the world. The number of CCTV cameras is estimated at nearly 2 million. Now the government wants to monitor all electronic communication as well, including social media, taking surveillance to a level never seen before.
Just what you say in calls and messages won't be kept, but the government will know exactly who you speak to, when you do it, and where you are. It'll be stored by broadband and mobile companies, but security services will have real-time access at the click of a button, secretly living your life with you.
Getting a mug shot and your fingerprints taken usually means you've been up to no good. In Israel, though, it's been used to combat ID fraud. But not everyone's happy that the government's planning to hold biometric info in every citizen. Here's our Middle East correspondent, Paula Sleer.
For 60 days, Yoav Maor's every move was watched by the lenses of 50 cameras and the eyes of countless fans of Israel's version of Big Brother. Contestants of the hit show often complain it feels like their lives are owned by the viewers. But for Yoav, that really happened after leaving the house, when his identity was stolen.
A couple of weeks ago, I received a phone call from the police. At first, I thought I was being pranked, but then I realized it was very real. They'd arrested somebody who'd been stealing IDs. He'd also stolen mine and opened many bank accounts with it. A week later, I received a letter from a mobile company asking me to pay thousands of shekels.
And it's exactly because of thefts like this that Tel Aviv says it wants to pull out all the stops to protect its citizens. But many complain it's now going a step too far.
The technology is nothing new. You put your finger here and then you look into this camera and it all gets recorded. But what has people up in arms is the fact that all this information is going to be recorded in one governmental database that may not be 100% secure.
The cost in privacy terms and in financial terms of giving your finger and your face to the government is too heavy. It creates a risk that the database will leak or be used against you by corrupt individuals or corrupt civil servants.
The 2-year pilot is asking citizens to voluntarily scan their faces and fingerprints. Once the information is collected, it will be accessible without a court order to the police, army and security forces. When there is a court order, the entire database could then be transferred to other agencies, including foreign bodies.
1984 is ancient history compared to this. There is another sci-fi book called My Name is Legion. In the book, all of the people were categorized by the government. We are getting closer to that future. If not in this generation, then in the next one, babies' DNA could be taken upon birth. 1984 is ancient history compared to this. There is another sci-fi book called My Name is Legion. In the book, all of the people were categorized by the government. We are getting closer to that future. If not in this generation, then in the next one, babies' DNA could be taken upon birth.